banks, EWP, IFC, whatever, etc. Second option is enhancing, developing our local GP's capacity because during the last 18 years, we, as I mentioned, worked between funds in our region, we invested in more than 100 companies, and we, as a state-owned agency, we are trusted. We can disclose information about this. In comparison with family offices, we reach the private sector as well. It's a candidate. So, because of some reasons, disclose information about this, but we, I think we can share knowledge, information about this instrument. Of course, unfortunately, the equity instrument is not popular rules. Something our activity at the moment, etc. But we increase our fund managers' capacity, we increase corporate governance framework, and bring some experience in market. So we can make cooperation with our regional worldwide companies, institutions, investors. Some of them are speaking now very strong proven record. We are as a gateway between Southeast and Gulf countries, so North and South. We can use our opportunities to be partner for all participants.
Thank you. One question. Can you hear everybody? Is the volume loud enough? Okay, no, right? Okay, organizers, can you increase the volume, please, of the microphones for the speakers? Organizers, anybody? Can you do that? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Is that better, everyone?
Much better.
Okay. Okay, thank you. You can hear me, right?
Loud and clear.
Okay, no problem. So one of the big things that is changing in QIC is that QIC has gone from a more passive conversation of being a limited partner, which means investing into another fund that manages money, typically outside Kazakhstan, with some presence perhaps inside, is that we're changing the strategy so that we also groom the next generation of GPs in Kazakhstan who are Kazakh. So some of our subsidiaries, like B Global, is becoming GP. They're going to be an active investment for the economy. This is a change in mindset, change in culture, which should be welcome and will help what the government is trying to achieve, because we want to have GPs that are ours. We also want to have co-GP opportunities, where people here in the panel, so that we can cultivate the next generation of professional managers straight into the economy, which you can all understand is critical if you want to have sustainable economic growth. Okay? Good. So, thank you for that, Didar. Now, the question for each of you, we're going to leave Asiya for the last, because you will bring the local flavor to the question, right? What does Kazakhstan need to do to really establish itself as an investment, transformational investment hub, not just for Central Asia, but also for SEMEA, as we talked about the Gulf, connecting markets. You get a compass, by the way, you go like this, 5 hours in an airplane, you connect 5 billion people from Kazakhstan. That's a very impactful market. So what can Kazakhstan do to be a transformable hub? But I want to think about in a more sophisticated way. I want you to talk to me about what kind of regulations, cross-border advantages Kazakhstan has vis-a-vis their landscape. Because you have to have a way to access to what, how do we make money? What innovations in funding to be finance, convertible bonds, what kind of capital structure instruments would be interesting for investors? So when we think about how do we transform Kazakhstan, we don't have to talk about rapid growth, we don't have to talk about large stats, we know this. Let's get more specific. What can we do to be even more attractive than we are for the greater investment base?
Well, you start with the proposition that Kazakhstan has enormous natural advantages to be a hub and to be the center of the universe here. It's a large country, it's extremely wealthy in terms of natural resources. It is a carbon-based income stream that facilitates transformation. And it's done some amazing things already. If we come from Dubai, we have the Dubai DIFC, we now have the AIFC. And it's a great place, it's building, et cetera. But when you think about the ecosystem that it's created, it has laws that people recognize from abroad, England. It has a tax regime. It has regulatory governance, so that people have the faith that there's a regulator there. It's not the wild, wild west. You have developmental institutions like bidirectly guarantees. You have the debt institutions, which you know very well, having been involved with them for a number of years. So you develop that entire eco structure that makes everybody comfortable, that allows you to exploit the natural advantages you have. And if you look at Kazakhstan, it's really at the crossroads between Asia. We see it as connected to the GCC, to the Middle East. And it's also connected to Europe in a great way. So I was struck this morning listening to Ms. Maloney. And it turns out that maybe it was the commentator, but Italy is the largest trading partner of Kazakhstan in the EU. And I went and looked it up. It's like a $17 billion number, and it's created by a number of natural advantages that causes that to occur. You've not even got any of their petroleum company invested here. But Italy is a center for two things that are important to Kazakhstan today. One is agriculture. It is an innovator in agricultural techniques, and that has direct applicability. And northern Italy, people don't really focus on that much, is a huge industrial complex. It's maybe third after Germany and France in terms of machine tooling, et cetera, et cetera. So specialty manufacturing is an area here that everybody wants to emphasize. So you have natural affinities. And that's a gateway for Kazakhstan to expand itself and become a hub in Europe, take advantage of the gateway programs, what the European Development Bank will bring. You've got the UN Development Program. So they can help you organize matching funds that bring amplification so that the government doesn't have to do it all itself. But once you get that ecosystem fired up, it's pretty self-sustaining. So I think if you look at where Kazakhstan sits in the world, it's really the crossroads. And what you simply need to do is mobilize the resources to make people comfortable, and that will come over time. So I think we're just at one of the questions you put in that multiple question format, you'd be thrown out before. Too many questions. Is that you don't have a maturing PE system here. You have a takeoff. This is long track. This is at the beginning of the J curve here. So it's a wonderful opportunity for Kazakhstan. And you have an enlightened government that is focused on bringing FDI into the region. And I'm sure it will do what it needs to do as it turns itself.
One of the things that investors will always come back, and thank you for that, Richard, is the fact that since we are taking off and not there's not a lot of success stories in terms of exits. So one of the things that need to be managed are exit strategies. But with the EIX and it's AIF fee. It helps with the ability to the future to see some IPOs in the future or strategic sales. These are the mechanisms of closing your valuations, which all investors look to. So as we start building this equity market, we will look to, as investors, to see some of these exit strategies being put in place. So Cliff, I would love for you to pick up on that question as well.
Of course. I would like to address lastly your question in 3 points. One is picking up 2 things you mentioned. First is the building a more 3D multi-tier capital structure for enterprises here. The second point I will talk about is de-risk, and for investor risk is very important. And the third point I will talk about is foreign. So coming to the first point, in terms of multi-tier of capital construction, definitely is need to take place. Many economy at the early stage, I think you already well mentioned, is using debt, using bank financing. China has gone through a very similar situation. Bank industry is very, very developed. The big 4 banks, so-called, dominate the entire banking industry. Not until maybe about a decade ago, they started to have this PEVC ecosystem. So everything starts from bank. Bank is an old industry in the industry. But of course, bank cannot solve all the problems. Bank is need to be very conservative. So we need capital that are more risk-taking. In multi-layer, so that's why we have pre-VC, seed, VC, PE, bio, and all that. So building such a capital structure is very important, fostering the market participants with a friendly environment, policy, so on and so forth. But also equally important are enterprises, business owners' mindset. So again, if I take China as an example, many entrepreneurs are reluctant, in fact, to raise capital in the good old days. Nowadays, they're very reluctant to receive buyout. There's a lot of buyout happening in America, but in China, there are very little buyout. So that means that even if the industry has developed for 15 years, it's still very, very mature compared to the United States standards. So for Kazakhstan, maybe it's an early stage on developing such a multi-layer capital structure, but obviously you can take lessons from developing the market and we shorten the curve hopefully. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 about the risking of environment here. We being a foreign investor, obviously we are cautious about how to assess the risk, whether it's jurisdiction, legal risk, tax risk, many other possibly policy shifting risks. We really oftentimes, our playbook is we first look at how the government conduct itself and the government agency, such as QIC and other long-term capital representing certain government features, be the leader of calling the other capital to come to the market. So government capital should be the patient capital, should be the capital that takes most risk as come to promoting industry development, creating ecosystem, generating champion upstream unicorn. We really look up to the government capital to take the lead role first, and then private capital will come along with, and that's how we look at how we reducing the risk for investors. And then the third point is foreign capital involvement. We've been successfully in the past 8 years participating in economies such as Saudi Arabia. So 8 years ago, they started the Vision 2030, they started to diversify economy into non-oil economy. They went through also the cycle of when we started putting in investments. We found very little target available for us to write checks, let's say for 50 million, 30 million. It's very, very difficult. Then what do? Our playbook is we look at them elsewhere, outside the country. So that's why we look at our home country. We saw a lot of companies are eager to also expand, and they have assessed a lot of good things that can help the economy overseas to shorten the curve to build their own industries, to bring foreign investors, not just foreign investors, but foreign companies who bring along with their technology, products, and create jobs. So I think that would be a good lesson that we try to apply our expertise, apply our recipe to create some deals here that brings friendly foreign capital, friendly foreign companies, but they're very keen to localize themselves to this market and take this market as a pivotal moment and point to radiate to the bigger region, to the Central Asia and into the CEMEA, as you mentioned. And I think that will be what we are very looking forward to actually here.
Thank you. Asya, give us the local flavor.
No, I would generally add to what Richard said. So as we are the allocators to global private funds, so we see a lot of interest in recently, in 1 or 2 years, a lot of interest in Kazakhstan, who are interested in them to see what are the opportunities. Of course, they do understand about the enormous opportunities that we have, resource opportunities. But the one interesting thing is about the IFC structure that we have. A lot of them, what I see is that quite interested, and they know that we have such a structure, which is similar to the IFC that the UAE Dubai has, which is a good for mitigating their risk. Another factor, of course, what TYC in this case is quite important, is to mitigate their exit options. So if we can find the opportunities for the best exit options for any private funds that are coming to our country, that would substantially stimulate and promote the market for them.
So we're going to pivot now to a little more specificity. Okay, so the question for the three of you, and then Didar, I'm going to have a question afterwards to you, is when you look at Kazakhstan with the strategies of what's interesting to invest here for Central Asia and CEMEA, with bringing out markets, what are the investment niches that you're looking for? If you had $100 million to invest now, or whatever your mandate is, what are the industries you think are top of interest that you think have the potential to grow here and to radiate out, including nucleus, which I think is important? And I also, when you answer that question, I'm going to go back to this. Talk to me about the importance of the local operator desk, your partnership with your investor, right? So you're investing in a company, the importance of the local operator desk. Because cultivating private equity is both teaching from above and investing from on top.
First of all, taking the second part of your question to begin with, our chairman is a fellow by the name of Karim Government, and Karim was the head of private equity for Abu Dhabi Investment Corporation. And at the highlight of his career, he's now an advisor to Congress. He was managing approximately a $250 billion portfolio of private equity investment around the world. And when we talked to him about coming to Kazakhstan, because we had an intellectual analysis of it, we thought made sense. His first question was, who's your partner? Who's your partner? Private equity is a local game. It's all about understanding the environment, being able to read the room, understand it. Who is your partner? You're not going anywhere without a partner. And I think that's absolutely true. It dovetails with what you were talking about, which is having GPs, having the institutions here be GPs, not just passive LPs. And I think that's a key element of the investing strategy, is to have the right local partner. It also provides a degree of insulation for you. We like to invest in with the IFC and various marketplaces, and because you feel that you have some insulation from risk if you have a partner that nobody wants to fit. So simply put, if you get the right partner, you've got more latitude in your ability to act in the field support. So we think the local content is really, really important. Very important.
Are there any particular industries that you think are top of mind that are of interest?
Yeah, absolutely. We're just at the beginning of our journey here, so it's a little preliminary, but I think you have to start with the fact that Kazakhstan is the middle road coming from China east-west. And so much revolves around that. Is Caspian corridor, is Caspian International, the middle road. If you think about that, it's extraordinary. The number of borders where the trade moves. It gives you an incredible opportunity in logistics. I had the privilege of attending the Eurasian Development Bank Abu Dhabi about 3 months ago, and there was an absolutely extraordinary number put on the table by their economists there that said, this is how much, and I'm going to get this wrong, maybe it's not just Kazakhstan, maybe it's Central Asia, $7 billion a year of trade is left on the table because of logistics inefficiencies. Now, we don't know enough yet where the niches are, and certainly we're not going to run a dry course for what we do. But you have to start thinking through about what all the modalities of that are, whether it's managing ocean-going containers, whether it's specialty shipping that moves pharmaceuticals that require special handling. I don't know if you want to be in the great mass of moving ambient goods, but I think there's probably a huge amount of opportunity around logistics. I think agriculture is another huge area for Kazakhstan. I heard somebody on the first day of the plenary session suggest that Kazakhstan had enough square arable land, square acreage of arable land to feed 1 billion people. Stop and think about that for a minute. We're talking about 1/8, 1/9 of the world's population. It's a massive grain producer. And I look at agriculture, there's so much agri-tech going on around the world in terms of the ability to enhance production, bring new techniques to it that make it more sustainable. I think there's just a huge opportunity here. And I don't know enough about the industry, but the value-added chain, you're producing, what do you do with that? You should have pasta companies, you should have flour companies, you should have bakeries, you should have people who are doing frozen dough. I mean, there's all sorts of permeations, and one of the nice things about private equity is people like us come in and they start thinking about it. And you need people who are incentivized to think about how do you do that. And I think maybe it was Cliff who said, one of the other strategies is if you don't see it there, you bring it in. You find a company from abroad and you bring it here to fill a gap. So I think one of the things that PE can do for this country is to be innovative about how you fill in the gaps. And to identify what the gaps are that will increase efficiency. So I think healthcare is another place, because at some point in time, there are opportunities to move healthcare provision from the balance sheet of the government to a more efficient system that has the private sector involved. And I think that would free up space in the public budget for other things. So I think, really at the beginning of the journey, and you have a very educated entrepreneurial young population that's very digitally enabled. I think when you think about what you can do with online deliveries, online ordering, this is it's not absolutely virgin territory, but it's certainly territory that can be mined for all sorts of opportunities. So those are just three, but I think there's huge amounts.
The whole point is for us to have more value-added products. And you will get value-added products when you have good partnerships with equity investors that are looking for efficiency. And that is part of what the government wants to do. So it's not just about getting to 7% GDP, it's structurally keeping that GDP high. And that is through value-added products. So Cliff, would you like to comment on that? Because then, Didar, I'm just going to give you a warning. I'm going to ask you about our pipeline to show Didar. So I'll give you a minute to think through that. But Cliff,
Yes.
and then I'll see after.
I think Richard has picked up all the policy factors, right? Maybe just jump to the more specific that yes, definitely we will look at transportation logistics, back in $100 million budgets. We do have, Richard also explained that the whole corridor and the key is very good from east to west, and all we agree, I agree. So on specific sides, we actually already have a portfolio company, it's a global supply chain company. So we're very much engaging the conversation about how we look at this, the global supply chain reshuffling under the current geopolitical environment. And I think that they are now so far under consideration, underutilized. The route between China through Xinjiang to Kazakhstan and to Central Asia, Central Europe. Instead, they have operating center right now in Hungary. So these kind of conversation, Hungary is very eager to take place. We are very eager to take place to see how such a global supply chain company can make utilization of the Kazakhstan open up for their representation now, both capital, both resources, facility, and so on, to see how can make a win-win investment. That's one sector. Second sector would be in the generally speaking smart hardware robotics. So over the last 10 years or so, China has been moving to a big smart manufacturing hub. For example, I read somewhere that Kazakhstan is also very much promoting low-flying economy. That's a big thing in Shenzhen right now. The whole city is embracing low-flying to the extent that not only that you now can order your coffee, your iced tea, and fly to you, and they're talking about from the city center, take helicopter, or some flight taxi to the airport. Because that's just one subsector that the municipal government need to make it work. So I'm sure the experience will be very transferable and comparable here. And other things, robotics, including like warehouses, automation, very advanced. Human look like kind of humanoid, very advanced already. China just recently hosted this first time worldwide, globally, first time semi-marathon. It's a semi-marathon, but run by robotics, humanoid. So that's how advanced right now putting into robotics. So I think the robotics side is also very much a opportunity to see how we can transfer some of these halfway completed and halfway commercialized company and start using the scenario here. Lower hand is to using the culture, the language as a new scenario, new application, so they can commercialize the product along the way to senior population. So that's another thing I can think of right now.
Thank you. Asian.
Yeah, so to add to what you have already clearly, Richard covered everything, but definitely that would be, as our fund would be definitely interested in looking for the logistics, which is an area of substantial potential to grow agriculture, of course, definitely. But those two areas that require substantial capital expenses, capital investments, where without government support, it's absolutely hard to grow over investment. And I would definitely agree there is a lot of growing talent coming from the country, so it's quite interesting to see the tech sector, how it's evolving, the VC space, absolutely an area that we are focused on and should be focused for the agenda of the investment environment.
All right, so hot seat, Didar. We got to give these people something to invest in. So talk to us about the pipeline that QIC sees, not only from QIC, but also as piggyback investments perhaps with other institutions.
Yes, we can discuss our pipeline. Is one of
Organizers, my friends in the back, could you please put up the volume? Up. Make believe no one can hear. We're all deaf. Up. Can you test that?
Can you hear me?
Thank you. Okay.
And one, I think it's a pipeline provided by our independent GPs. We are very inspired when we had meetings and conversations with our potential GPs. And for these 2-3 days, we had several meetings with our current potential GPs. And I think it seems very exciting, and we truly believe that we can do these needs for our economy, achieving our goals to increase our GDP in the next 4 or 5 years. And for instance, we invested in some deals. We can disclose it because we already exited from one of them. Of course, it's a high-task project. It's very, I think now, as of now, it's the biggest poultry company in Kazakhstan. And it's about 40% of producing of poultry meat in Kazakhstan. And we invested with our possible without our equity providing, and it's very important providing equity in comparison with debt to make national champions. And the second stage can be expanding to Central Asia, to our neighbor countries, Azerbaijan, Pakistan, etc. The second one is Almaty International Airport. I think Marcia, you know that 5 or 6 years ago it was another one. And it became real because of our equity we provided in partnership with international institutions like the European and other institutions. And now we see a lot of opportunities in agriculture. I totally agree with speakers. It's a new oil for us. We have in our pipeline some projects in agriculture. Unfortunately, I can't disclose the names of the companies, but we see a very huge potential. And because we don't invest in minerals, we invest only in non-resources sectors. We need to find jobs in higher growing plants and so we are looking for potential national changes. Of course, we believe that we can make it in agriculture.
So let's lean into that a bit before I ask you guys one last question, and maybe open up for some questions here. You see, this is interesting from the national side because there's a need to balance the development of champions through a cluster approach, debt, equity, even export help, which the government is doing. There's also, obviously, we want to kindle pre-seed and seed and, let's say, greenfields, factories and etc. But the government has a very tricky job, and QIC representing, is balancing income and income development and sourcing, whilst at the same time allowing for risk to occur, because you can't babysit investors forever, right? So to allow risk to occur, but yet be able to balance the outcome of income development through champions. So in other words, what am I saying? We want to help de-risk, but at one point we do need to let investors, as they mature, have their own risk when it comes to investing in Kazakhstan. So it's a very delicate balance for the government right now. We're still in the stages of that. So when we get people interested in coming to invest and want us to be anchors in QIC, talk to us a little bit, just succinctly, about the tussle, a little bit of the tension between what investors want and what the government can provide.
Yeah, we can provide our investment opportunities, and we can take care about some bureaucracy procedures in Kazakhstan, administrative procedures as well. And of course, we can consider our investments professionals, because for these 18 years we invested a lot of time for our employees. Now they're working around the world, in Oman, in Wall Street, in US, everywhere. And I think it's one of our good edges we can show to our partners. And think we can invest in the RS as well.
All right, back to our panel of guests. So all of you are interested in investing in Kazakhstan, so thank you. And all of you have shown a dedication coming back here, exploring with us, and trying to get deals done. So let's be very specific. What does Kazakhstan need to do in the process of iterating interest into the country to actually disperse new money? What does Kazakhstan need to do to unlock more opportunity for expressive investment from your side into the country? What are some of the bottlenecks that we need to eliminate?
Why don't you go to the other end? So I have the chance at the end to say I have.
So Cliff, I'm going to give it to you.
Many things, I guess. Okay. I guess many things. To start with, the soft one is nowadays I think that as Astana, Almaty, Kazakhstan become more and more international city and destination for investment, more and more investor, foreigner in travel here. Just the flights to the international city, I think that is one thing that make it more easier to travel to Hong Kong. That would be very helpful. But nowadays, going to Hong Kong or any Chinese city here is still a little bit patchy, no direct flights. But then it's all. But back to the investment questions would be like, one is for us, we are now looking at investment projects here. We're still very unfamiliar with the market, so we do hope that our LP can introduce us to different government entity, whether it's promotional government entities or others. And for example, in any specific industry, we will probably need constituencies in this country to be able to empower the potential projects, whether it's regulation, whether it's a license, or whether it actually is connecting to other players in the market that could be work together, upstream, downstream. That we would look for not only a passive LP, but our LP can also provide such a guidance to make a project easier to adapt, to be localized. And I think the second point I would like to seek more support, that would be we do look at and understand that many of the capital provider here, especially government-related provider, are seeking investor to bring also foreign capital into the country, bring projects into the country, and oftentimes they will come along with capital plus some conditions. Without mentioning too much specific, but I think that we have experience with working with other countries to bring foreign capital into the country, and oftentimes this foreign capital come in very different ways, shape, or forms, and could be pure equity, could be co-investment, could be each company bring hard asset to the country and borrow against it. All these will make these companies that don't exist before the project now exist in the country, and their establishment and the expansion all the next 10 years and many years to come consider FDI to the country, to the host country. So to that end, I think that we are seeking a broader understanding of how foreign investors can bring benefit to a country like Kazakhstan, and we'd like to share more experience for our cases in other countries.